We watched Kamala Harris, who announced a week and a half ago, Elizabeth Warren, who is on the verge of officially announcing. Both take a little bit of a step back from Medicare for All. They mentioned that their co-sponsors are not just the Medicare for All bill, but other competing bills in the Senate. We also saw one of Nancy Pelosi's top aides go, and it was leaked, a PowerPoint deck that suggested that the Democratic leadership in the House is not interested in pursuing Medicare for All for various reasons, and that their agenda has more to do with strengthening Medicare and Medicaid and fixing the Affordable Care Act. What do you take from all this? And I'm specifically curious about, because we went through something like this in the 2008 race, but it seemed to happen much more behind closed doors and much quicker. Like by the time we had the top three candidates, all three of them almost agreed identically or had subscribed to the identical plan, which ultimately became the ACA. The argument was about the public option and about the mandate. But single payer advocates had basically conceded the battle before the campaign got into full swing, and it was really centered around the public option. I'm curious, Digby, what your perspective is this time around.
Well, my recollection is that the reason that happened in 2008 was that the people who'd been, the healthcare experts on the Democratic side had been working for some years to create this sort of incremental concept of doing an ACA-style program, but it would include a public option, which was seen at the time as sort of the first step into going for a single-payer plan or a Medicare for all type thing. You would have that there. That would mean people could buy in. It would, control some costs. It would be, an option that people would like, and that would usher in something where the rest of the system would start to adapt to that. And that had been pushed for years by.
We should be clear. We should be clear that public option is only available to people on the exchanges. So we're only talking about 10 million people in the country, right? Out of, maybe 150 is the potential, people who are not covered by Medicaid or Medicare, maybe a little bit less or something, or children's programs. So maybe 200. But so we're talking about 5% maybe of the American public that would even be eligible to even be close to being able to get the public option.
Right, and I think that had been sold to the single-payer advocates. It's going, look, we're going to do this incrementally. This is going to be your first step. We're going to get that in there so that is an option. And if they could pass all legal muster, and the public option could be something where you could say that the Medicare program, Medicare-like program was legal, and that a government-run program of that kind that people could opt into and buy privately, that was going to usher in, the next step where you could theoretically go to single-payer or some kind of hybrid system that would have a robust single-payer system within it. And the single-payer people bought into that, and in fact, that's why the fight over the public option was so vociferous, and they fought tooth and nail. And when that got taken down, sort of, and it was really, you and I were both there, following it, in a, minutely. It really, that's what ushered in this idea that, Medicare for all, we're not going to listen to that stuff anymore. The single payer people are very seriously, they did what they were supposed to do, which was they said, okay, we'll back off. We're going to be pragmatic about this. We're going to do the right thing. We'll do this little public option thing, and then we'll work on expanding that. And the Democrats, the likes of Joe Lieberman and people like that, basically sabotage that in the ACA, and the president and his people did not really fight very hard for it, because that really wasn't what they were trying to do. This was seen as a sop to the single payer people and something to just keep them on the team, and the single payer people recognized it. And by the way, a lot of feminists and people who are sort of pro-choice, they feel the same way. and they're going to fight very hard for their side as well. You learn your lessons, right? You get
right.
You stay on the team, you do the right thing, you try to be a good team player, and you are the one tossed overboard. You're not going to be so willing to go that way the next time. So that, I think, sets the table for what we're dealing with now. And I don't blame politicians for this. It's a very fraught thing. We're just starting to talk about it. We don't know where the public is going to be. There's a lot of sort of polling that shows that people like the idea of Medicare for all, but they don't really understand if that means that they don't have access to private insurance if they want it. They, the Bernie Sanders style or the Elizabeth Warren style or this. So it's a confusing thing. But, it's inevitable that it's going to happen because what we have now is an ACA that if it's not it's better than it was before, but it's failing on a number of levels.
Right.
And costs are going up, and a lot of people are paying more, and something has to be done. So if we're at one of those crossroads where it's, okay, what is that thing that's going to be done? The single-payer people and the Medicare for all people, they are there, and they're going to fight because, they're not, this is a new day, and this is another time. And it may just be that watching those Republicans vote, how many times was it, 70 times or something, against the ACA and try to just dismantle it with nothing, has shown that the Democrats get nowhere with them either. That,
right.
having this hybrid sort of program doesn't really get them anywhere with the other side. So, it's a fight worth having. It's got to be done, right? I mean, what are we going to do? I can't say I'm looking forward to it particularly, but it is what it is, and we're going to have to do something. If the Democrats get back into power, this is going to be job one for them.
Right. And it's going to be fascinating. I mean, this is what I think is going to be really, I think there's going to be a lot of elements about the Democratic campaign that's going to be fascinating, but this is going to be the big one, it seems to me.
I think so.
Like how, different candidates sell their vision of whatever comes next in terms of health insurance, because there seems to be unanimous agreement that something more has to happen.
Right.
Right. And just saying fix the ACA is not going to cut it. And now you may use the ACA as the basis, but it just seems they undersold the patient protections the first time around, if you ask me, right? Because it was the ACA PPI. It was the actual name of the legislation. The patient protection, I can't even remember what the last letter stand for, but the patient protection was the part that actually implicated everybody. The ACA, you got, it expanded Medicaid, and that I think was the most successful part of it. But then if you were somewhere between 133% and 400% of poverty and you had no job, had health insurance at your job, you went into the exchanges and it didn't, it was a little bit better, but not really. The best parts about it were the patient protections, the pre-existing conditions, all the things that defined what, in fact, health insurance were. That was undersold. Now they're going to work on the cost. And I don't know how you get there with private insurance, at least as private insurance as the center point of the insurance industry. But Heather, we're going to have a lot of time to talk about this going forward as well. It's a good thing that we're putting a flag in it. We're going to have we're going to have new candidates next week when we talk. So until then, thanks so much for your time this week. Always a pleasure.